Lee Do-hyun stood at the main window of Hanul Station's command center. The view showed the endless dark of space filled with distant stars. For 3 years, this mining station had been his home. For 3 years, it had been peaceful. That peace ended when the alarm started screaming. "Sir, we have ships coming out of hyperspace," Park Mina called from her communication console. Her voice was tight with worry. "Lots of ships." Do-hyun turned away from the window. The command center was small but efficient. 20 people worked at various stations, monitoring the mining operations and keeping the colony safe. Today, their faces showed fear. "How many ships?" Do-hyun asked. He walked quickly to the main display screen. 30 vessels, sir. Maybe more." Park Mina's fingers moved fast across her controls. "They're not answering our greeting signals." The display screen showed red dots appearing in the system. Each dot was a ship. Each ship was bigger than anything the mining station had for defense. Do-hyun felt his stomach drop. "Get me Kim Woo-bin," he ordered. Kim Woo-bin arrived in the command center within minutes. The head of security was a big man with calm eyes. He looked at the display and said nothing for a long moment. "Those are warships," Woo-bin finally said. "Military class. I count at least 6 battle cruisers." "Are they human ships?" Do-hyun asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, sir. The design is unknown. Not human, not Corvani, not any species in our database." Choi Yuna entered the command center. The chief mining engineer looked tired from her long shift, but she became alert when she saw everyone's faces. "What's happening?" "We have visitors," Do-hyun said simply. "Uninvited ones." The communication console started beeping. Park Mina looked up with wide eyes. "Sir, they're sending us a message." "Put it through." The speakers crackled with a harsh, alien voice. The words were translated by the computer, but the tone was clear even without translation. It was the voice of someone used to being obeyed. Human. "Colony, you will surrender immediately. Lower your shields and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in the death of your population. You have 1 hour to comply." The message ended. The command center was silent except for the quiet hum of computers and life support systems. "Well," Yuna said quietly, "that was direct." Do-hyun looked at his people. 50,000 humans lived on Hanul Station. Miners, engineers, families with children. They had come here to build a new life, far from Earth's crowded cities. They had not come here to fight a war. "What do we have?" "For defense?" he asked Woo-bin. 6 patrol ships. Good pilots, but they're meant for pirates and small raiders. Each patrol ship has maybe 10 crew members. Woo-bin paused. "Against 30 warships, we won't last 10 minutes in open space." "What about the station defenses?" "Shield generators and some defensive weapons. We can protect the station for a while, but not forever. Maybe a few days if we're lucky." Do-hyun nodded slowly. He had been an officer in the Korean Space Navy before, taking this job. He knew about warfare. He also knew when a fight was hopeless. "Park Mina, can you get a message to Earth?" "Yes, sir, but it will take 3 days to reach them through the relay stations. And even if they send help immediately, it would take weeks for any ship to get here." "Send the message anyway. Tell them we're under attack by an unknown alien force. Tell them we have 50,000 civilians and we need help." Mina's fingers flew across her console. "Message sent, sir." The next hour passed quickly. The alien ships moved closer to the station. Woo-bin organized the security teams and prepared what defenses they had. Yuna worked on turning mining equipment into weapons. The 6 patrol ships took positions around the station, When the hour was up, the alien voice came again. This time, it sounded angry. "You have not surrendered. This is unwise. We are the Vorthak Empire. We take what we want. Your people will serve us as workers. Your children will be raised as our servants. Surrender now, or we will take your station by force." Do-hyun picked up the communication device. His voice was steady when he replied. "This is Administrator Lee Do-hyun of Hanul Station. We are human beings. We do not surrender our children to anyone. If you want this station, you'll have to take it." The reply came quickly. "So be it." The first attack came an hour later. Vorthak fighters swept in fast, testing the station's defenses. The human patrol ships met them in space. The fight was brief and deadly. 2 patrol ships were destroyed. A third was badly damaged. The Vorthak lost only 3 fighters. "They're just testing us," Wubin reported. "Seeing what we can do." "And what did they learn?" Do-hyun asked. "That we'll fight. That we're not helpless. But also that they're much stronger than us." Over the next few hours, the Vorthak settled into position around the station. They didn't attack again immediately, instead they waited. It was the behavior of predators who knew their prey couldn't escape. Do-hyun called a meeting of the senior staff. In the small conference room, he looked at the faces of people who had become his friends over 3 years of working together. "We all know the situation," he said. "They want our people as slaves. They want our children. We can't let that happen." "What are our options?" Yuna asked. "Fight and probably die, or surrender and definitely become slaves." "When you put it that way," Wubin said with a grim smile, "the choice is easy." "What about the families?" Mina asked. "The children? Do they get a choice?" "The choice is whether they grow up free or grow up as slaves," Do-hyun replied. "I know what choice I want for them." They spent the rest of the day preparing. Every able adult was given a job. Some would fight. Some would keep the station running. Some would take care of the children and the elderly. That night, Do-hyun stood again at the command center window. The Vorthak ships were visible now as bright dots against the stars. They were beautiful in their own way, but they represented everything he hated about the universe. The strong taking from the weak. The powerful crushing those who couldn't fight back. "Sir," Mina called softly, "there's something you should see." He walked to her station. On her screen was a message from Earth. It was short and simple. Message received. Help is coming. Hold your position. "How long?" he asked. "At best speed, maybe 3 weeks, Mina replied. 3 weeks, against an enemy that could destroy them in days. But it was something. It was hope. Do-hyun looked around the command center at his people. They were scared, but they were determined. They were human. "Pass the word," he said. "Help is coming. We just have to stay alive long enough for it to get here." Outside the window, the Vorthak ships waited in the darkness like hungry wolves. But inside the station, 50,000 humans prepared to show them what happened when you threatened human children. Admiral Kang Ji-hoon was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alert sounded. The sharp, urgent tone cut through the quiet of Terra Prime Naval Command like a knife. He set down his cup and walked quickly to the main operations center. THAO Operations Center was the heart of Earth's military. Dozens of officers worked at stations that monitored space traffic, communications, and threats across human territory. Today the room buzzed with unusual activity. "What do we have?" Kang asked Captain Song Hae-yun, his intelligence officer. Distress call from Hanul Station, sir. Mining colony in the Kepler 442 system. Song handed him a data pad. They're under attack by an unknown alien force calling themselves the Vorthak Empire. Kang read the message quickly. 50,000 civilians, 30 enemy warships, request for immediate assistance. The timestamp showed the message was 3 days old by the time it reached Earth. Have we heard of these Vorthak before? He asked. No, sir. Dr. Shin Na-young is pulling everything we have on them now. Dr. Shin arrived 20 minutes later with a thick file and a worried expression. She was Earth's leading expert on alien species, and if she looked worried, there was good reason. The Vorthak Empire, she began, spreading pictures and reports across the conference table. We've had rumors about them for months. They operate far from human space, but they've been expanding rapidly. What kind of species are we dealing with? Kang asked. Militaristic. Aggressive. They conquer other species and use them as slave labor. According to our sources, they've taken at least 6 different worlds in the past year. Commander Yoon Tae-hyung leaned forward. What's their usual method? They send a large fleet to intimidate their target. Most species surrender without a fight rather than face total destruction. The Vorthak then take the best workers as slaves and leave the rest to serve as local administrators. And if the target fights back? Dr. Shin's expression grew darker. They make examples. Entire populations killed to discourage others from resisting. Kang studied the reports. The tactical situation was clear enough. Hanul Station couldn't hold, out long against 30 warships. A rescue mission would need to be fast and strong. Recommendations? He asked his staff. Standard rescue operation, Yoon suggested. Send a battle cruiser group, maybe the Soul's Pride with escort ships. Fast, powerful, sufficient to handle 30 enemy vessels. That would work, Song agreed. We could have them there in 2 weeks if we pushed the hyperspace engines. Kang nodded slowly, but something bothered him. Dr. Shin, you said the Vorthak are expanding rapidly. Any pattern to their targets? Actually, yes. She pulled out a star map marked with red dots. They've been testing different species, seeing how each one responds to aggression. Testing for what? We think they're planning something bigger. Each attack teaches them about the military capabilities and willingness to fight of different species. The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a raid on one human colony. It was a test to see how humans would respond to aggression. What have other species done when attacked? Kang asked. Exactly what we're planning. Send a force just large enough to handle the immediate threat. Fight off the attack, negotiate a settlement, and return to normal operations. And what do the Vorthak learn from that? Dr. Shin met his eyes. That the species is rational, predictable, that they won't risk their main forces for distant colonies. Kang walked to the large window that looked out over Terra Prime's military district. Below, he could see the massive shipyards where Earth's fleet was built and maintained. Hundreds of ships floated in organized formations, from small patrol craft to the huge dreadnoughts that were the pride of human engineering. Captain Song, what intelligence do we have on Vorthak military capabilities? Limited, sir. But based on their recent actions, we estimate their total military force at maybe 200 ships across their entire empire. 200 ships for an entire interstellar empire? Yes, sir. Most species they've encountered field much smaller forces. They've never needed more than 50 ships for any single operation. Kang turned back to his staff. So they send 30 Ships to attack Hanul Station, expecting us to respond with maybe 10 or 15 ships. They want to see if humans are like everyone else. That seems to be their pattern. Yes, sir. Dr. Shin, in your professional opinion, what would happen if we sent exactly the force they expect? She considered the question carefully. Short term, we'd save Hanul Station and drive off the attack. Long term, the Vorthak would learn that humans respond predictably. They'd plan accordingly for future operations. And if they decide to invade human space in force, with what they've learned about our response patterns, they'd probably win. The room was silent again. Outside the window, the ships of Earth's fleet went about their routine duties, unaware that the future of humanity might be decided in this room. Kang made his decision. Commander Yoon, signal all fleet commanders. I want the 3rd, 7th, and 9th fleets to begin immediate mobilization. Yoon's eyes widened. Sir, that's over 800 ships. 847 ships, to be exact. Kang's voice was calm and steady. If the Vorthak want to test human resolve, let's give them a proper education. Admiral, Song said carefully, that's the largest military force in human history. Are you sure this is proportional to the threat? Captain, the Vorthak have 50,000 human civilians under their guns. They want to enslave our people and take our children. In my opinion, 800 ships is actually rather restrained. Doctor. Shin smiled for the first time since entering the room. Admiral, this will completely change Vorthak expectations about human military response. Good. I want every alien species in the galaxy to understand something very clearly. You can attack human ships. You can invade human territory. You can even declare war on humanity. But if you threaten human civilians, especially human children, we will bring everything we have. The mobilization began immediately. Across Earth's orbital facilities and lunar bases, ships that had been on routine patrol or maintenance duty received new orders. The 3rd Fleet departed from Mars Orbital Station. The 7th Fleet left Jupiter's moon, Europa. The 9th Fleet launched from the massive facility at Saturn's rings. For the first time in human history, nearly the entire Space Navy was deployed for a single operation. The logistics were staggering. Fuel ships, supply vessels, and support craft joined the main battle fleet. Communication ships established relay networks to coordinate the movement of nearly 1,000 vessels across interstellar space. Captain Lim Hyun-woo, commander of the dreadnought Soul's Pride, received his orders with amazement. His ship was one of 12 dreadnoughts in the combined fleet. Each dreadnought was a kilometer long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the combined firepower of this fleet exceeds the total military capacity of most alien empires. That's the point, Hyun-woo replied. We're not just going to rescue Hanul Station. We're going to send a message that will be heard across the galaxy. Back on Earth, Admiral Kang watched the departure of the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. The sight was magnificent and terrible. Lines of warships stretching across thousands of kilometers, all heading toward a single destination. Admiral, Dr. Shin said quietly, the Vorthak intelligence network will detect this fleet long before it reaches Hanul Station. They'll know exactly what's coming. I'm counting on it, Kang replied. I want them to have time to think about what they've done. I want them to understand the magnitude of their mistake. And if they withdraw before we arrive, then they'll withdraw knowing that humans will mobilize their entire military to protect 50,000 civilians. That lesson alone is worth the effort. The fleet disappeared into hyperspace. carrying with it the hopes of humanity and the promise of rescue for the defenders of Hanul Station. Behind them, Earth continued its normal activities, but something had changed. Humanity had shown its true face to the galaxy, and that face was not one of a species that would be easily conquered or intimidated. In the depths of space, the largest armada in human history raced toward a confrontation that would reshape the balance of power across the stars. The first real attack came on the second day. Lee Do-yun watched from the command center as Vorthak fighters swarmed toward the station like angry insects. The remaining 4 human patrol ships moved to intercept them, their pilots knowing they were flying into almost certain death. Han Ji-soo was one of those pilots. She had been a commercial cargo pilot before coming to Hanul Station, but she could fly anything with engines. Now she pushed her small patrol ship to its limits, weaving between enemy fire while trying to protect the station. "This is Patrol 7, her voice crackled over the communication system. "I count 20 fighters incoming. They're fast and well armed." "Copy. That's 7, Kim Woobin replied from the security station. "Station defenses are online. We'll give you what support we can." The battle was brutal and quick. The station's defensive weapons managed to destroy several enemy fighters, but the Vorthak pilots were skilled and experienced. By the time the attack was over, only 2 human patrol ships remained operational. Han Ji-soo's ship was one of them, but barely. She limped back to the station's docking bay with her engine smoking and her hull scarred by enemy fire. That was just another test, she reported to Do-yun when she reached the command center. "They wanted to see our defensive capabilities." "What did you observe about their tactics?" Do-yun asked. "They're good, but not exceptional. The real problem is numbers. For every ship we destroy, they have 5 more." Over the following days, the siege settled into a deadly routine. The Vorthak would probe the station's defenses with small attacks, learning more about human capabilities each time. They seemed in no hurry to launch a full assault. They had time, and they knew it. Choi Yuna worked around the clock to convert mining equipment into weapons. Industrial lasers became defensive turrets. Mining charges became improvised missiles. Ore haulers were converted into makeshift fighters. "It's not much," she told Do-yun, "but every little bit helps." The real heroes were the civilians. Baek So-min, a school teacher who had never held a weapon in her life, organized volunteer groups to help with defense preparations. Parents taught their children how to reach emergency shelters quickly. Elderly residents who had lived through Earth's last wars shared their knowledge of rationing and survival. Dr. Oh Kyung-soo, the station's chief medical officer, prepared for casualties that everyone knew were coming. His small medical facility was expanded into emergency treatment areas throughout the station. Volunteers were trained in basic first aid. "We're as ready as we can be," he reported to Do-hyun. "But if they launch a full attack, we'll be overwhelmed. Quickly." On the 5th day of the siege, the Vorthak commander made contact again. The alien's translated voice filled the command center with its harsh authority. "I am War Chief Thaksamor of the Vorthak Empire. You have resisted longer than expected. This shows courage, but also foolishness." "This is Administrator Do-hyun. What do you want?" "I offer new terms. Surrender now, and only the adults will be enslaved. Your children will be raised as servants in Vorthak households. They will live comfortable lives." The command center was silent. Everyone understood what the alien was really saying. "Give up now, and your children might survive. Fight, and everyone dies." "Your terms are rejected," Do-yun replied. "Human children are not property to be traded." "You would rather see them die than see them live as servants?" "I would rather see them live free." "If you want this station, you'll have to take it from us." The alien's response was cold with anger. "So be it. You have chosen death for your people. Do not blame us for what happens next." That night, the Vorthak launched their first major assault. 60 fighters attacked the station simultaneously while larger ships moved in to bombard the shields. The noise was overwhelming as defensive weapons fired constantly and explosions shook the station's hull. Han Jisoo took her damaged patrol ship out one more time, joined by the station's converted ore haulers. They were no match for the enemy fighters, but they fought with the fury of people defending their homes. "Patrol 7 to base." Jisoo's voice was strained over the sound of weapons fire. "My engines are gone. I'm going to ram that cruiser." "Negative." "7!" Wubin called back. "Return to base." "Can't return base. Tell my family I love them." Her ship disappeared in a bright flash as it struck the Vorthak cruiser. Both vessels were destroyed in the explosion. The assault lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the station's shields were down to 20% power. Half the defensive weapons were destroyed. 14 people were dead, including Han Jisoo and 2 other pilots, but the station still held. "Damage report," Do-hyun called. "Out. Shield generators are badly damaged," Yuna reported. "We can patch them, but they won't take another assault like that." "Medical facilities are at capacity," Dr. Oh added. "We have 37 wounded and we're running low on medical supplies." Wubin looked up from his security station. "The good news is we hurt them too. They lost at least 12 fighters and 1 cruiser. Will they attack again soon? Probably not immediately. They'll want to assess the damage and plan their next move." That gave the defenders time to work. Repair crews crawled through damaged sections of the station, fixing what they could. Yuna's engineers worked to restore the shield generators. Medical teams treated the wounded, but everyone knew the truth. They had survived one major assault, but they couldn't survive many more. On the 7th day, long-range sensors detected something strange. Energy signatures at the edge of the system, too large and numerous to be natural phenomena. "What are those readings?" Do-hyun asked the sensor operator. "Unknown, sir. The computer says they're massive energy sources, but the patterns don't match anything in our database. Could they be ships? If they are, they're bigger than anything we've ever seen. And there are hundreds of them." The sensor operator worked frantically to clean up the signals, but the readings remained unclear. "Sir, the signatures are so large that the computer thinks it's a malfunction." Park Mina looked up from her communication station. "Sir, I'm detecting quantum communication signals. Someone is trying to establish contact." "Put it through." The signal was weak and filled with static, but the voice that came through was unmistakably human. It spoke with a Korean accent, calm and professional. "Hanul Station. This is Admiral Kang Ji-hoon of the Terran Defense Force. We are en route to your position. Estimate arrival in 18 hours. Hold your position." The command center erupted in cheers. People hugged each other and wept with relief. After a week of facing impossible odds, help was finally coming. But Do-hyun remained focused on the tactical situation. "Admiral, be advised that enemy forces consist of approximately 25 remaining warships. They are well-armed and experienced." "Copy. That Hanul Station. We'll handle the situation from here." As the day passed, the sensor readings became clearer. The approaching fleet was indeed massive, far larger than anything the defenders had imagined possible. Hundreds of ships of various sizes, all moving in perfect formation toward Hanul Station. The Vorthak had detected the approaching fleet, too. Their ships began moving into defensive positions, but there was something different about their formation. Instead of preparing for battle, they seemed to be preparing to retreat. War Chief Taxmore contacted the station one final time. His voice had lost its earlier arrogance. "Human Administrator, what force approaches this system?" "That," Do-hyun replied with satisfaction, "is what happens when you threaten human children." The Vorthak commander cut the communication without another word. As night fell on Hanul Station, the defenders waited for the arrival of their rescuers. The siege was nearly over, but none of them yet understood that they were about to witness something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Vorthak detected them first. War Chief Taxmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the tactical display with growing disbelief. The energy signatures approaching his position were impossible. No species he had ever encountered could field such a massive force. "Communications officer," he barked. "Contact the approaching fleet. Demand identification." "Sir, I've been trying for the past hour. They are not responding to our signals." Taxmore's tactical officer looked up from his station, his face pale with fear. "War Chief, the energy readings are off our measurement scales. The computer estimates over 800 separate vessels. That's impossible. No species has that many ships." "Sir, perhaps the sensors are malfunctioning?" Taxmore wanted to believe it was a sensor error, but deep in his gut, he knew better. The humans had surprised him once by refusing to surrender. Perhaps they had more surprises waiting. On Hanul Station, the defenders watched their long-range displays with amazement. The approaching fleet was so large that individual ships couldn't be counted. They appeared as a moving wall of energy signatures, stretching across space. "How many ships are there?" Lee Do-hyun asked. The sensor operator shook his head. "I've stopped counting at 400, sir. There are too many to track individually." Park Mina looked up from her communication console. "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from the fleet commander." "Put him through." The voice that came through the speakers was calm and professional, but underneath the calm was something that made even the battle-hardened defenders shiver. It was the voice of someone who had come to deliver judgment. "Hanul Station. This is Admiral Kang Ji-hoon commanding the Terran Defense Force. All station personnel are to remain in secure positions. We will handle the situation from here. Admiral, this is Administrator Do-hyun. The enemy force consists of approximately 25 warships. They are heavily armed and have been besieging us for 8 days. Understood, Administrator. We have them on our sensors. There was a pause. Then the Admiral's voice returned, broadcasting on all frequencies so that both the defenders and the Vorthak could hear. This is Admiral Kang Ji-hoon of the Terran Defense Force, addressing the Vorthak vessels in this system. You have attacked human civilians. You have threatened human children. You have made a grave error in judgment. On the Vorthak flagship, War Chief Taxmore finally found his voice. Human Admiral, I am War Chief Taxmore of the Vorthak Empire. We are willing to negotiate a withdrawal from this system. War Chief, you came here to test human resolve. Consider this your education. The human fleet began dropping out of hyperspace in waves. First came the escort vessels, destroyers, and frigates that would have been considered powerful warships by most standards. The Vorthak commanders watched with growing dread as dozens, then hundreds of these ships took positions around their fleet. Then came the cruisers, sleek, deadly vessels bristling with weapons and advanced technology. Each one was larger and more powerful than the biggest Vorthak warship. There were over 100 of them. War Chief, the tactical officer whispered, we should retreat now, while we still can. But Taxmore was frozen in place, watching as the human fleet continued to arrive. The cruisers were followed by battleships, massive vessels that dwarfed everything the Vorthak had brought to the system. Each battleship was a fortress in space, capable of destroying entire fleets. "How many battleships do they have?" Thaxmore asked. "I count 45, sir." "No, wait. 47. The numbers keep climbing." Finally, the dreadnoughts arrived. 12 ships each over a kilometer long, bristling with enough firepower to crack planets. They moved with slow, terrible grace, taking positions at the center of the human formation. Captain Lim Hyunwoo commanded the lead dreadnought, Seoul's Pride. From his bridge, he could see the entire Vorthak fleet arranged before him like toys. His weapons officer was running continuous target solutions, calculating how quickly they could destroy every enemy vessel. "Sir," the weapons officer reported, "we could eliminate their entire fleet in under 10 minutes. "Hold fire," Hyunwoo ordered. "The Admiral wants to make a point, not just win a battle." The human fleet had arranged itself in a perfect battle formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Every ship was in position. Every weapon was charged. Every crew was ready. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying, a demonstration of military power that had never been seen before in this part of the galaxy. On Hanul Station, the defenders watched in stunned silence. Even Do-hyun, who had served in the Navy, had never imagined that humanity possessed such a massive fleet. "My God," Choi Yuna whispered, "where did all these ships come from?" "They came for us," Do-hyun replied, his voice filled with emotion. "All of them. For 50,000 people they barely know." The communication channels crackled as Admiral Kang's voice filled the system again. This time, he was speaking directly to the Vorthak commander. "War Chief Thaxmore, you and your forces are surrounded and outgunned by a ratio of 30 to 1. I am prepared to offer you terms." Thaxmore's voice shook as he replied. "What? What are your terms?" "Unconditional. Surrender. Your ships will be impounded. Your crews will be interned, and you will answer for your crimes against human civilians." "And if I refuse?" The Admiral's response was cold as space itself. "Then you will learn why no one threatens human children." Thaxmore looked around his bridge at his officers. They were the elite of the Vorthak military, veterans of dozens of conquests. Now they stared at their displays with the hollow eyes of beings who had realized they were completely outmatched. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the smaller vessels are requesting permission to retreat." "Retreat where?" Thaxmore snapped. "We're surrounded." Indeed, the human fleet had positioned itself so that every possible escape route was blocked. The Vorthak were trapped in the center of a sphere of human warships, each one capable of destroying multiple enemy vessels. "War Chief," his tactical officer said, "our intelligence was completely wrong. The humans aren't a minor frontier species. They're a major military power. How did we miss this? Because they've never deployed forces like this before. No one has ever threatened them enough to make them show their true strength." Lieutenant Jang Minji, the communications specialist aboard Seoul's Pride, monitored the enemy transmissions. She could hear the growing panic in Vorthak voices as they realized the hopelessness of their situation. "Admiral," she reported, "the enemy ships are beginning to break formation. Some of the smaller vessels are trying to surrender individually." "Negative," Admiral Kang replied. "I want all of them. Every ship that participated in this attack will answer for it." The standoff continued for hours. The Vorthak fleet sat motionless, surrounded by the largest military force in human history. On both sides, crews waited for the order that would begin or end the confrontation. Finally, as the hours stretched toward a full day, War Chief Taxmore made his decision. His empire had sent him to test human military capabilities. He had learned far more than he ever wanted to know. "Human Admiral," he transmitted on all frequencies. "The Vorthak fleet surrenders unconditionally." "Acknowledged," Admiral Kang replied. "Prepare to be boarded." As human Marines began the process of securing the surrendered Vorthak vessels, the defenders of Hanul Station finally allowed themselves to believe that their ordeal was over. They had held out for 8 days against impossible odds, and help had come. But more than that, they had witnessed something unprecedented. Humanity had deployed nearly its entire military force to save a single colony. The message was clear to everyone watching: attack human civilians at your own peril. In the depths of space, other alien species monitored the confrontation through their own intelligence networks. The galaxy had just learned something important about humanity, and the lessons would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come. The surrender of the Vorthak fleet was swift and total. Within hours, human Marines had boarded every enemy vessel and secured their crews. War Chief Taxmore found himself in the brig of a human cruiser, staring at walls that seemed impossibly advanced compared to Vorthak technology. Admiral Kang Ji-hoon stood in the command center of Seoul's Pride, watching the final stages of the prisoner transfer. The battle, if it could be called that, had lasted less than an hour from first contact to surrender. No shots had been fired. The mere presence of the human fleet had been enough. "Admiral," Captain Lim Hyunwoo reported, "all Vorthak vessels are secured. We have 847 prisoners in custody. Casualties? None on our side, sir. The Vorthak lost 12 crew members during their siege of the station, but no one was harmed during the surrender." Kang nodded. This was how he had wanted it to end. Not with more death, but with a demonstration so overwhelming that further violence became impossible. On Hanul Station, the evacuation had begun. Dr. Oh Kyung-soo supervised the transfer of wounded civilians to the medical ships that had accompanied the fleet. His small medical facility was finally getting the help it desperately needed. "Doctor," one of the arriving medical officers said, "we've reviewed your patient files. Your work here has been exceptional. You saved lives with equipment and supplies that most doctors would consider inadequate." "We did what we had to do," Oh replied. "These are our people." Choi Yuna worked with the engineering teams to assess damage to the station. The human fleet had brought massive repair ships that could restore the mining facility to full operation within weeks. "Administrator Do-hyun," she reported, "the repair estimates are better than we hoped. The station can be fully operational again in 3 weeks. "Are the families staying?" Do-hyun asked. "Most of them, yes. This is their home. They're not going." To let the Vorthak scare them away. But the real consequences of the confrontation were only beginning to be felt across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, alien governments watched the recordings of the human fleet with amazement and growing concern. Ambassador Cho Yejin arrived at Hanul Station 3 days after the surrender. She was Earth's senior diplomatic officer, tasked with managing the political aftermath of the military operation. "Administrator," she said to Do-hyun, "I need you to understand what has happened here. This wasn't just a rescue operation. We've changed the balance of power in this entire region of space." "How so?" "Every alien government within 50 light years now knows that humanity possesses the largest military force they've ever seen. They're all reassessing their relationships with us. Indeed, the diplomatic consequences were already beginning. The Corvani Assembly, humanity's longtime mining partners, had immediately requested a formal defense alliance. The peaceful Zephyrian Collective had offered to share advanced technologies in exchange for protection. Even the mysterious ethereal consciousness had reached out through diplomatic channels, but the most significant response came from the Vorthak Empire itself. Within a week of the fleet's arrival at Hanul Station, a Vorthak diplomatic vessel appeared at the edge of human space, broadcasting surrender terms. Captain Park Seojun commanded the intelligence analysis ship Shadow Dancer. His job was to monitor alien communications and assess the strategic implications of the Hanul incident. "Admiral," he reported to Kang via secure communication, "the intelligence we're gathering is remarkable. The Vorthak Empire is in complete chaos. Half their fleet commanders are demanding an immediate ceasefire with humanity. What about the other half? They want to negotiate a formal peace treaty. Sir, they're terrified of us." The fear was not limited to the Vorthak. Intercepted communications from a dozen alien governments showed the same pattern. Species that had dismissed humanity as a minor frontier civilization were suddenly treating Earth as a major galactic power. Dr. Shin Na-young had been busy analyzing the prisoner interrogations and captured Vorthak data. Her findings were presented to the Earth government within days of the fleet's return. "The Vorthak intelligence assessment of humanity was completely wrong," she explained to the assembled officials. "They believed we were weak because we had never deployed large military forces outside our own territory. They mistook restraint for weakness," Admiral Kang observed. "Exactly. Every other species they had encountered responded to aggression with the minimum force necessary. The concept of deploying an entire military to protect a single colony was completely outside their understanding." "What's their assessment now?" "That humanity is the most militarily powerful species they've ever encountered. They estimate our total fleet strength at over 2,000 ships." "Are they correct?" Dr. Shin smiled. "They're actually underestimating us. We deployed less than half our total fleet to Hanul Station." The news sent shock waves through the galactic intelligence community. If humanity could deploy 847 warships and still have more than half their fleet in reserve, what was their true military capacity? The answer came during a diplomatic reception 6 months later. Ambassador Cho was hosting representatives from 15 different alien species on Earth's orbital station. The topic of discussion was interstellar security and the prevention of conflicts like the Hanul incident. "Ambassador," the Corvani representative asked, "may I inquire about human military doctrine? Your response to the Hanul attack was unprecedented." "Our doctrine is simple," Cho replied. "We protect our people, all of our people, regardless of where they are or how many of them are threatened. But surely there must be limits, economic considerations, strategic priorities. When human civilians are threatened, especially children, we don't consider economics or strategy. We consider only what force is necessary to ensure their safety." The alien representatives exchanged glances. This was not how civilized species were supposed to behave. Military force was supposed to be calculated, measured, rational. And if protecting those civilians required your entire military, the Zephyrian asked, "then we would deploy our entire military," Cho replied without hesitation. In the months that followed, this simple statement reshaped interstellar politics. The Vorthak Empire formally surrendered and agreed to pay reparations to their victims. 3 other aggressive species quickly signed non-aggression pacts with humanity. The slave trade in the local region of the galaxy collapsed as potential raiders decided that humans were too dangerous to target. On Hanul Station, life returned to normal. The mining operations resumed, families rebuilt their homes, and children played in the corridors as they always had. But there was a new confidence in the way people carried themselves. They knew that if anyone threatened them, 800 ships would come to their aid. Lee Do-hyun kept his position as station administrator. He often stood at the command center window, looking out at the stars and thinking about the week that had changed everything. Kim Woo-bin approached him one evening. "Sir, there's something I've been wondering about." "What's that?" "Do you think the Vorthak learned their lesson?" Do-hyun smiled. "I think the entire galaxy learned a lesson. You don't threaten human children." The lesson was indeed learned. In the years that followed, no alien species ever again made the mistake of underestimating human resolve. The Hanul incident became a turning point in galactic history, the moment when humanity announced its true strength to the universe. But perhaps the most important lesson was not learned by aliens, but by humans themselves. They had discovered that when their people were threatened, they were capable of deploying forces that staggered the imagination. They had learned that their greatest strength was not their technology or their ships, but their absolute commitment to protecting each other on Earth. In the halls of Terra Prime Naval Command, a new motto was inscribed on the wall: "We protect our own." It was a simple statement, but after Hanul Station, everyone in the galaxy understood exactly what it meant. War Chief Taxmore, serving his sentence on a human prison world, was asked by a young Vorthak officer why they had failed so completely at Hanul Station. His answer became legend among the surviving Vorthak. "We thought humans would send help. We never imagined they would send everything they had. That is the difference between humans and everyone else. When their children are threatened, there is no force in the universe they will not deploy, no sacrifice they will not make." The young officer asked, "And what does that teach us?" "Never threaten human children," Thaxmore replied. Never. The galaxy had learned this lesson well. In the decades that followed, human space became a haven of peace and prosperity, protected not by conquest or intimidation, but by the certain knowledge that humanity would defend its people with everything it possessed. And in the quiet corridors of Hanul Station, children grew up knowing they were protected by more than just their parents and teachers. They were protected by an entire civilization that had shown the universe what happened when human families were threatened. The stars themselves bore witness to that protection, and they would remember it forever.